All right, I'll make a video because I'm having these thoughts. And I did make a video about the future of African American politics. I did that way too late. I was kind of tired. So you might want to speed the video up because I don't know. I went back and I listened to it and I was like, why does it sound like I'm tired? Probably because I was. But speaking on like this whole conversation about the Second Amendment has a couple of thoughts that have entered my mind, and then I got into a argument with a number of Canadians that wrote in my comment section because basically I said Canada is not a real country. Canada operates underneath a constitutional monarchy. And it's like, what is a constitutional monarchy? Like, what does that really mean? And the thing that's kind of funny to me is when we talk about ownership, right? Like, people when somebody owns something, right? Like if it's my house, I can kick you out of my house. If it's my car, I can kick you out of my car, right? It's mine. There's a meaning behind it being mine, right? And you talk to the Canadians, they'll tell you, oh, well, the queen doesn't really have any power and she's just a figurehead. I don't know what fairy tale they done told you. And I'm saying you can look all this stuff up on, Wikipedia. Wikipedia is actually a pretty damn good source because it's like if you click and then it has like keywords in there that are in blue, and it'll take you to another page and open up another page. Just certain phrases that in America, like, we don't have any of these terms. We just don't. And I had to think about the origins of America. And I've been pushing this point to a number of people, and it kind of like goes over their head. They're like, that doesn't matter, especially when we talk about race and the Second Amendment, because obviously the Second Amendment wasn't originally designed to apply to African Americans, right? We were chattel labor. Then you have the people who make the argument that the only reason they ratified the Second Amendment and put that in there is because they were worried about slave revolts, right? Because the slave revolt in Haiti, I think it started in like 1791, and then it ended in 1804, and the Second Amendment was ratified in like April of 1791, or was it December? It might have been December, and the slave revolt was in April. And we all know what happened to Haiti. They blackballed Haiti. They couldn't let Haiti be a shining example of a successful slave revolt, right? So they buried Haiti. They embargoed Haiti and wouldn't trade with Haiti, right? Richest colony in the Western Hemisphere on the island of Hispaniola or Hispaniola, however you want to say it. And, they basically, Haiti's been suffering ever since. They wanted, white supremacy wants to, continue the narrative of, Africans can't govern themselves, right? And America is, when you look at it and you look at the ideologies of being an American that even African Americans adopt, it's very individualistic. It's very, it's like a New Yorker. You know how like New Yorkers are, in my opinion, are very arrogant and cocky and I'm from New York. I'm from the center of the universe. Like that's like New York. That's how Americans are. That's all the way to the white redneck. This is America, America. All that. It's American attitude. This individual freedom attitude, which has only like even been further exacerbated, over the last couple of years, right? And I'm like, yeah, America is a problem for itself in terms of a group of people governing a group of people, right? Like you had Socrates who basically made the statement about, who talked about an excess of democracy. Basically when you have an excess of democracy, you have basically demagogues can form who come up and tell everybody free candy, and then people go and they vote for that. They don't. if they're not informed, if they're not educated, then they can't look at the pros and cons of either side and then come to an educated conclusion that weighs in all the factors and, will be the best for the general population, right? But if you look at American politics now, it's all fractured into all these like interest groups and sub interest groups, right? And I think that was a major mistake on the part of Democrats. They thought it would benefit them in the long run, but I definitely think that it has undermined American democracy. And then you have the outside groups like Russia, who basically, everybody talk about Russian bots. Think about it. If you're Russia and you got all these issues with America, right? So it's like the superpowers are basically, it's basically Germany and the UK. The rest of Europe doesn't matter. The United States, Russia, and China. And that's pretty much all that matters in the world. UK, Germany, Russia, China, and the US. That's all that matters in the grand scheme of things. They want to have a nuclear war, throw missiles at each other, and nobody else in the rest of the world can really do much. Right. But actually, secretly, Morocco controls the whole entire world because Morocco controls the freaking food supply with their, was it phosphorus for the fertilizer? But that's a whole different conversation, which is why I thought it was interesting how they put the Moroccan king as leader of the assassins in John Wick. Y'all got to pay attention to these dog whistles they put in these movies. But anyway, um, getting off topic. I'm saying if I was Russia, yeah, I would be trying to. I mean, America's not a homogenous society. I would try to exacerbate, throw gasoline on the racial issues, especially between black and white, which we saw during the whole, George Floyd and all that. I definitely think Russia was, because that's the whole problem with social media. It's this open space, and that's why now they're talking about we must regulate social media using Uvalde and mass shooters as justification to clamp down on social media. And then you got Elon Musk going in the opposite direction. It's just like, yeah, I'll pretty much tolerate pretty much everything because he's all about for free speech. But there's certain people in positions of power who don't want that. They want clamp down on control. Now, me personally, I buy into all that, Illuminati, Bilderberg Group, Trilateral, Corporate Commission, and all these. I mean, the world leaders, the wealthiest people, the businesses, they all come together and they have a little meeting probably once a year, and they decide, okay, what are we going to do? What direction are we going to go in? Right? And these are meetings outside of UN. These are the people that invite only, powerful resources, all that stuff, and they go and do the whole vanilla sky thing, right? But thinking about the Second Amendment and the origins of it, right? The meaning, why does America have a Second Amendment? How come we don't have Second Amendments around the world in all these other countries, right? Because America was the only country that fought for its liberation from the crown, like legit fought for it. Not people think about the revolution. The Revolutionary War was not just some like little skirmish. Like the Revolutionary War, it was bloody. I'm talking, fixed bayonets. I'm talking bludgeoning somebody to death with the butt of your musket. Right? Like that's how much, I mean, watch movies like The Patriot, if you want, probably the modern accurate depiction of what war was like back then, right? I mean, they legit fought for it. And so, you obviously had what Louis the 13th, Mary Antoinette, all those sort of revolutions in Europe, right? And all the monarchies were running scared. Now, in my estimation, they got eliminated by what is now today's business class. Basically, the nobles took over and got rid of them and conspired against the kings and the queens, and then they became, the business elites, the bankers, and all that other stuff. They're the ones that have the real power. Mm. Right? And so the monarchies, they basically were like, oh shit, what are we gonna do? Uh, you know, We'll go in turtle. We'll what do I mean by turtle? Like basically we're gonna keep a low profile. We're gonna sit in the back because being at the forefront, then what happened to Louis the 18th and Mary Antoinette? I think it was the 13th, 18th, 13th, Louis the 13th, right? Um, if you're at the forefront, right, you catch all the smoke, right? Just like in America, the president takes all the blame, for everything, right? Trump is the one that, it was all for the stimulus, even though the Democrats were for the stimulus as well. But I'm saying Trump was also for it. All this stuff took place. Inflation was going to come. Shit clicked over. And now Biden's taking all the heat for all the gas and everything else like that, right? When America's at war with Russia and Russia basically it's a I don't know what you call that. What do you a petroleum autocracy? You know what I mean? Basically Russia supplies all of the energy for Eastern Europe, right? Which was stupid when it comes to Eastern Europe. Like it's like, okay, so you see Russia taking Crimea and doing bullshit back in like what 2014, and then y'all still dependent on them for energy, and you just thinking like shit was gonna be sweet. Like that was dumb. That was really dumb. Mm. But where was I going with this? Speaking on speaking on the Second Amendment, but where was I going? I was going somewhere. Yeah. So we were talking about not being in the front anymore, right? So you create this matrix situation where you give the illusion of freedom, right? The illusion of rights, since that's what everybody wants. And it's funny watching the Canadians think that they have all these rights and they have all this say. And I'm like, you really don't. You really don't. Like, example, like what you've seen recently with Trudeau, Prime Minister Trudeau, and his just first it was we're just banning assault weapons, get rid of them, right? Then now it's get rid of the handguns, right? And I'm saying the UK already has that, right? Again, one of Queen Elizabeth's territories, right? Australia, they already did that. New Zealand, right? Their prime minister, just waved the magic wand. No assault weapons, ban them. You can't have them anymore, right? These sort of decrees, right? That's what they do. And I wonder what the privileges are for people who are like knights and shit. Like, what are their like real privileges, right? But I'm saying, while at the end of the day, here, let me read off the territories of the Queen, right? I'm gonna go through. Where's this at? Territories of the Queen. All right. So, Queen of the United Kingdom and the other Commonwealth realms. I love that word, realms. Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Jamaica, the Bahamas, Grenada, Papua New Guinea, Solomon Islands, Tuvalu, I don't even know where that is, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines, Belize, Antigua, and Barbuda, right? Barbuda, right? Not Barbados, Barbuda. Okay. St. Kitts and Nevis, and then you have the other countries that actually broke away, like right, because the top ones are highlighted, but the bottom ones are not. But I'm guessing these are the ones that used to be former, like going all the way back to the whatever the British Tea Company and all that shit. Pakistan, South Africa, Ceylon, I don't even know where that is. Ghana, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Tanganyika, Tanganyika, I don't even know where that is. Trinidad and Tobago, Uganda, Kenya, Malawi, Malta, the Gambia. What do you mean the Gambia? Anyway, Guyana, Barbados, Mauritius, and then you have Fiji, right? So these were all the I guess the original realms, and then obviously some of those places they broke all ties. But Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, which everybody heralds as the model of gun control and all this other shit, they're still the queen's bitch. Again, like ownership doesn't get past me. You know, like the idea that you know that you will, like, in other words, I'm giving you the illusion that I don't have that power. Like the Queen Elizabeth is the head. She is the head of the Canadian military. She can send the Canadian military basically anywhere she wants in the world. You know, like you gotta understand, like, why is she still attached to it if you want to say she's just a figurehead and she doesn't have any power? Again, like, it's like the shit is in her name, right? You know, all going back to, Queen Victoria. Queen Victoria is the one that actually was the one that basically, went with all of these, appeasing. They didn't in America, set the shit off, with the Revolutionary War. And if you look at, like, just think about, right? You have all these nations, and I went through and looked at the list of, what country, like, example, like Russia's a semi-republic, and we know what goes down in Russia, right? And then you have parliamentary or constitutional monarchies, parliamentary, um, uh, what is it? Parliamentary, was it republic or something like that? Anyway, like India is like parliamentary, but India was like a former British colony, so everybody, like, everything's like based off of the parliament concept, right? But New Zealand, Canada, and Australia are constitutional monarchies. Like, I was sitting there looking at Wikipedia, like, what the fuck does that mean? Like, it's such a vague description. Like, I'm like, what does that mean? Well, you're still constant. Why is monarch on there? If you're a free and independent country, why is monarch on there? Oh, well, I mean, the majority of the population is British or comes from, England, and we still have ties and we love the Queen, and long live the Queen and all that shit, right? And then you have what's his name? Ian, the guy that was that was trying to, do the same thing with Rhodesia, and they basically were like, "Nah, you don't get to be the monarch of Rhodesia. You're a nobody. We're not approving this. We're not backing this. We're not backing you off and hailing yourself a monarch, because, like, that's what was his name? Ian. Let me see. Let me look it up real quick. Rhodesia. Ian. I just did the video on it. Ian Smith. Former, no, 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 no. Is that the dude's name? Assembly in Rhodesia. Da, 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 da. Yeah, Ian Smith. Somewhere I was reading, they actually had him labeled as Monarch of Rhodesia. If I go to that, is that Wikipedia? Let me see. Da, 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 da. Nah, Prime Minister of Rhodesia. Somewhere I was reading, they had him actually as Monarch of Rhodesia. I was like, what the hell? But anyway, um, yeah, he didn't get approved. They're like, nah, we're not gonna have you do that. And that's probably because they were trying to get away from, that whole aspect of, colonization by the 1960s. And that was well after the 1960s. That was like, what, 1970 to 1979, they had all those issues, right? But just thinking about it, and I don't want to make this video too long. I'm like, nah, America is a fucking problem. Like, when I was looking at all these countries on Wikipedia, when I saw, what was it? What is it? Constitutional monarchy. When I was on Wikipedia and I was looking at this shit, and I was looking at all the countries, like the presidential republic, which is what the United States is a minority of what the rest of the world is. You know what I mean? Like, they got the chart right here. So you got presidential republic, which is what the United States is. That's the United States. It's pretty much all of South America, a handful of countries in Africa, and I think Indonesia, and you have a couple countries like Iran. If Iran's like what do you call it? A theocracy, right? And then you got a couple like former Russian nations that are full presidential republics. But the other ones you have on here are republics with an executive president elected by nominated by the legislature and may or may not be subject to parliamentary confidence. They got one country in South America that's like that, and then a couple other countries. South Africa is like that. Parliamentary constitutional monarchies. That's what the red is. That's basically what the UK is. It's what Spain is, right? And then it reminds me of again that whole scene in Catalonia where the Catalonians were like trying to break away and they wanted their own autonomous region of Spain and they were just getting their ass beat at the polls, because they were basically shutting them down, saying you can't vote. So the monarch gets to come through and shut shit down. See, if you really try to become truly independent, like it's not gonna go down like that. See, as long as you operate with again, the illusion of freedom, you're cool. But if you start making moves like, no, 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 you want to be independent, independent, it's not going to go down like that. Now, I don't know what the history is of South Africa and how they broke away. I think that was a little bit different because like South Africa had like the Boers and the Afrikaners, right, who are from uh, Belgium. Nigeria. I got to look at the how Nigeria actually broke away. Um, and even Jamaica. That's another one I got to look up. But then you have where the purple ones, absolute monarchies. That's Saudi Arabia all day, right? Then you have countries where constitutional provisions for government have been suspended, and these are what is it, constitutional where provisions of government have been how the fuck do you suspend it? So I guess military, like so like if the like Boko Haram takes over a region or something like that, like the shit that's going on in the Sahel. Then you have semi-presidential republics. And I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? So let me see semi-presidential republic. That's what Russia is. A dual system, a system of government in which the president exists alongside a prime minister and the cabinet, which the latter two responding to the legislature of the state. Let me go back. Then we have parliamentary republics. That's what India is. That's what Ethiopia is. Parliamentary constitutional monarchies, which have a separate head of government, but where royalty holds significant executive and or legislative power. And the only one on this map that I see that's like that, actually, there's some other ones that are like that. I think like I don't know if this is like Oman or Bahrain. Uh, what is this? This is Morocco. Morocco's like that. And then you have countries which do not fit any or the above systems, and that's basically war torn countries or conflict areas. Libya is labeled that. South Sudan is labeled that. Yemen is labeled that. So they don't really have, a government. They have a provisional government. It says unclear politics and situation. Right. And so looking at this map, I'm like, the majority of the world is not set up like the United States. It's not like, oh, we go to the polls and we vote and we elect our, politicians, and then we have, the separation of the three branches of government, executive, legislative, and the judicial branches, right? So that no one part, controls everything, right? And again, set up by a group of people that broke away from the crown, right? So they put in all the safety measures in there, right? This is why again, this people can argue some of the other reasons. Oh well, slave revolt and everything. I'm saying kill two birds with one stone. Let's say they feared the slave revolt, but at the same time, it was still to create this whole checks and balances system. And again, that presents a problem even internally for America. Like when you look at all these, white supremacist groups, these militias, people who stormed the Capitol, right? Like, first off, it was dumb what they did because I'm like, if you go up against the federal government, you better win and you better recognize that there is no way for you to do that and be a law-abiding citizen. You will be charged with treason. The minute that you do that, you will be charged with treason. But again, like I said, the whole point of the Second Amendment is sitting right there in the Declaration, the preamble of the Declaration of Independence. It says it right there, clear as day. There's no way for you to, topple or replace the U.S. government, even if there was a long train of transgressions, not for transient reasons. It even puts that in there, like, don't change it because of flimsy reasons. Like, it's got to be like the shit has just gotten completely out of control, right? But I'm saying that's in the Declaration of Independence, right there in the preamble. But looking at the rest of the world, like, cause I was watching, the news, and I'm looking at, every time I turn on the news, they got some British accented person up there talking about in America's mass shootings. I mean, they're labeling shit as mass shootings that aren't even mass shootings. You know what I mean? They want to throw in suicides. They want to throw in, it'll be a shootout. Like two niggas on a corner shoot at each other, and they'll be like, and like some other like witnesses or bystanders got hit, and they'll try to claim that it was a mass shooting, like that recent shooting that they had in Philadelphia down there on South Street. It was three or four niggas beefing, and they shot at each other, and some other people got hit and killed. That's what happened. It was a shootout. It was not a mass shooting, right? And I'm sitting there, I'm like, why are they going so hard in the paint? Then I was watching YouTube, and they had Weon, right, which is the Indian network. Now I don't know who controls Weon. Actually, let me look at who controls Weon. Let's see who owns Weon. You got to look at who owns these media companies. Blah 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 blah. English news channel headquartered in New Delhi. So yeah, this is British again. English. Wait, is it English news channel or just English? Okay, no, they speak English. But let me go back. Blah 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 blah. But who owns it? It's part of Z Media Network channels. It's owned by the eCell Group. Who is eCell? Who the fuck is eCell? eCell, blah, 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 blah. Headquartered in Mumbai. Okay, so that's Indian run. Yeah, India. Okay, and then what's this other company? Who they linked up with? Z Media. Blah 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 blah. Subhash. Chandra. Anyway, Corporation Limited. Z was founded in the ESO Group. Yeah, so all these this was Indian based, so it's wholly Indian. But I'm saying they tried to label the Philadelphia shootout as a mass shooting, and I'm like, why every time I hear all these people with these British accents, they always up there and they're all just all up in American business. You know what I mean? Like all up in, they had a British guy. He was interviewing Ted Cruz, and Ted Cruz like snapped at him. He was like, "This is like right after the Uvalde shooting," and he was like, "Why is America have so many guns and we have so many mass shootings and everything?" And they keep trying to push this narrative, and to me, it's suspect. Anytime you have a nation where there's anytime they have like the narrative is the same in the media, you know what I mean? Like when you hear all these politicians, sensible gun laws, and we have to have reasonable gun control, and they keep saying the same thing over and over again. And it's like, okay, this isn't an original thought from you. Like somebody is paying you, or somebody like you got some overlords or something that's telling you to say this shit. And I see the same thing when I see any of these British accented, news anchors, talking about the Second Amendment. And I'm like, why do they keep doing this shit? And then, again, you look at Canada, you look at New Zealand, you look at Australia, you look at the UK. Just imagine, right? Like it's like America is like that really loud uncle. And I'm saying in terms of think about it in terms of on one side I have the people, and then on the other side I got the people who are in charge of everything and run shit, right? That control all the governments and countries and stuff like that. Right? America's whatever gun rights, right? It may be a uniquely American thing. Only other country that I could think of that has, not a Second Amendment right, but actually is all about the what do you call it? All about guns is Switzerland, right? In Switzerland, people say, oh, well, they're really regulated and everything. And again, another homogenous society, and basically, again, low poverty. So they're not going to have gun crime like that. And what else? What else do they have going on there? Basically, you can, yeah, all your stuff is you got to go through all the paperwork and all that other stuff. It's a filter. It's not a barrier. So you go through all the paperwork and everything, and then you can basically have whatever you want. It's just a matter of waiting, but you can get it. And I was watching this guy. He had a video from Switzerland and was like, yeah. And here you got Europe like basically telling Switzerland like, well, we need you to ban this and ban that, and this has to be restricted and all this other stuff. And they're like, yeah, okay, we'll put it behind this firewall of restriction. But like basically what the guy in Switzerland was saying, he was like, yeah, but you can still get it. Like we can still get it. It's just these whatever this little firewall thing that they put up. But you know, again, different history. Switzerland, different history. Now, if you ask me, when was that King Philip when he did the whole Order 666, which is basically what they put in Star Wars with the Jedi being taken out by Senator Palpatine. Yeah, when they did the whole eliminate the Knights Templar because they were basically running banking houses out of the Middle East and whatnot, and King Philip pretty much didn't want to owe them any more money and thought they got too powerful, too big for their britches. So he basically ordered, hell yes, come back to France and we will have a discussion and blah 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 blah. And he was like, gotcha, bitch, and then they freaking fled and they went to the Swiss Alps. And if you look at the Swiss, you look at the Knights Templars flag, and then look at Switzerland's flag. It's just the inverse, right? And then what are they famous for in Switzerland? What do they do in Switzerland? Banking, right? And what did they go to after that? Isolationism. Like, so it's like why were they always about isolationism? Right? Probably because the Knights Templars got betrayed and they were like, we ain't fucking with nobody. We just gonna be over here making our shmoney, collecting our millions, and that's all we're gonna do, right? And so that whole arming the populace and whatnot, because they were worried about the Germany coming in there during World War II, and there's a whole history behind it. But I'm saying the origins of that shit, in my opinion, are those people are the descendants of the Knights Templar who escaped to that region and then got with the indigenous people of that region and then taught them how to fight and whatnot and protect themselves and operated on basically don't start none, won't be none. We're not going to get involved in anybody else's shit. We got the mountains protecting us, so we good, right? But just in case, we got to know how to fight if anybody decides to come up in here and start some shit. So Switzerland is a very unique situation compared to the rest of Europe, right? Just like America, very unique, situation. But but yeah, if I was any of the if I were any of these European nations and I wanted to, control people, hell no, I don't want people running around with an American mentality. The rugged individualism of America and my rights and my freedom, right? Because I look at all these narratives that they push, and it's all about safety and who needs that and who needs this and who needs that. But then every so often, some shit happens in Europe. You know what I mean? They want to wipe out some ethnic group, or they, some people want to vote for more rights, right? Because they see America, they watch American news and they see all the stuff going on in America, and it's like, and see, this is why you get certain people that are just like they want the muhaha new world order. They're like, we got to bring all this underneath one umbrella anyway, like on some Starship Troopers type shit, you know, the global federation or some shit like that. Yeah, we got to bring it all underneath one roof, right? And that would be a situation where with that type of you know collective power, like nah, like you being an individual global citizen, oh please, like you would have hardly any rights, or you would have a situation where the corporations, which basically would be in charge of everything because they have all the wealth and the resources and everything. You end up with this wailing Utani, Tyrell Corporation. Like in what movie was that? What movie is the Tyrell Corporation? Blade Runner. You'd have situations like that. PMCs, private military corporations that work for these major, corporate government type of things. It's a dystopian future, right? But America is the one model of, individual right, against, the people versus the structure, the superstructure, the people versus the government, right? And it just amazes me how much people want to throw that away. Now, I've seen people who come from other countries. I remember I was reading some comment. It was a guy. I was watching some video about the Second Amendment. It was a guy. He was from Cuba, and he was like, "Never give it up, never give it up." It's like people who come from countries where they basically have no rights. They're like, "Oh, hell no, hell no." I totally get the Second Amendment and what that's all about, because I'm coming from this country over here where we got a king or we got a dictator, and basically, they, do whatever they want, and people are subject to that bullshit. But you know what the funny thing is if shit gets bad enough, people will figure out a way to get arms anyway and fight that government. You see this with what's going on in Syria. You see this with even in shit like Taiwan and Hong Kong. Like, they're starting to push back. I mean, Hong Kong's just screwed. Like, Hong Kong's just done. You know, um, again, underneath the British rule and everything. It's like, I mean, I'm talk about being in a screwed up position, right? So the British come over there, they put all their British shit on them, right? Economically, they're doing well, but again, you're still underneath the British crown, so you get no Second Amendment, right? Again, one of the Queen's territories, right? But then they promised after 90 years, yeah, we're gonna give you back to China, and it was like none of the people in Hong Kong prepared for that shit. You know what I'm saying? Like you should have been talking to the British like, yo, maybe the British didn't care, but you should have been like, yo, we need that Second Amendment. And I've seen a couple arguments, about that, about, people even during when they were protesting out there with the yellow umbrellas, there were people holding American flags and saying this is why we need a Second Amendment and this, that, and yeah, because you can't fight back. They up there with bows and arrows on rooftops and throwing whatever they can throw, Molotov cocktails and shit like that. Like, that shit is fucked up. And I don't know why people think that governments are so benevolent and why they're so trusting of governments are made of people and people are flawed. And so, that people have this sort of like really loopy idea about, governments can do no wrong. And then you have like the liberal mindset where the liberal mindset like thinks that they can create a law basically on anything. No, no, no. How I want to say this? They think that they can create a law to change people's feelings based on people that they don't like or they don't like how they think. Like, they think they can like create a law to force straight men to get with transgender women. They think they can create a law to eliminate racism or thoughts of racism. I'm like, you're not gonna be able to stop that. Like, stop it. Right? They think they can create a law that makes them feel safe. They never think that shit can go south. They think shit going south is all the people that they don't like or don't agree with them getting all the power. Like, that to them is shit going south. They don't think in both directions that that their side or those that are kind of outside of them but more a part of any sort of governmental entity could just go rogue. Like, they don't think that that can happen. I remember when Thug Titian, made this point about people getting too comfortable. He was like Jewish people in Germany got too comfortable. The Ashkenazi Jews, they got too comfortable. He was like, think about it. And he was making this point to highlight, how African Americans get too comfortable. He's like, yeah, the Ashkenazi Jews, they were in Germany, during the Third Reich and whatnot, and they were, or even before that, before the man with the funny mustache took over. They were in Germany. They were marrying Germans. They were intermarrying with them. They were speaking the German language. I mean, they were. I mean, other than their faith, they were pretty much as German as another German can get. And the other Germans still said, off to the gas chambers with you. It didn't matter how Germanized they became. It was still off to the cattle cars with you. And so I mean, if World War II, is not like one of the greatest examples of how shit can just go left. And not only that, like just like the savagery of people, how they can how you get like it's like that experiment they did. What was that at Stanford? The prison experiment where they had the guards and the prisoners, and then all of a sudden the guards really started taking on the role of being the guards, and they really started abusing the prisoners. Like you got to understand that those with a limited capacity and a limited mind are very susceptible to that type of shit when you put them in that type of situation. You tell somebody now, oh, could you do some horrible, horrific crime? Could you do this? And they'll tell you no. So you tell me, how the hell did the man with the funny mustache get all those Germans that prior to him coming into power, how did he get all of them to do the terrible things that they did, during the Holocaust? Like how do you get a person to do that? You know what I mean? Like and I forget what which camp was it? I think it was Dachau or something like that, where the U.S. soldiers were so fucked up in the head when they saw what the German soldiers had done to the Jews, that they just started taking them out just right there. I mean, I think they got a movie with who's in the movie. I think it's Leonardo DiCaprio's in the movie. He's one of the soldiers in the movie, and they just start offing the Germans, because they see the atrocities that they did, and that's like, again, I don't put that shit past people. I mean, there's plenty of examples throughout human history that shit like that has gone down. The Khmer Rouge, the freaking, Nanking massacre, the again, all the atrocities that happened to African Americans in the Jim Crow South with lynching and all that other shit, right? Humans are some damn savages. Some groups have a propensity to savagery more than others, but I'm saying overall, there's some savages. You want to go black on black? Let's go with the Hutus versus the Tutsis. Let's go Boko Haram or Al Shabaab or some shit like that, right? So I'm just saying, if people can, people will. If they can try it, they will. And since people are who make up governments, it's only a matter of time. I mean, that sort of elitism. You see that now with the people, they talk down on people. They think that they know better than anybody else, right? They start trying to, control the narrative from both ends of the conversation, right? You're up there telling them like, look, this is what we want, this is what we need, and they're like, oh no, you don't. You need this. And let me tell you what your problems are, and then let me solve those problems for you. But that's not my problem. I'm telling you what my problem. No, 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 no. No, we're gonna tell you what your problem is, and then we will solve that problem. But that's not the problem. No, 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 no. You're not listening. like like you see this all again. That's controlling the narrative from both ends. We will tell you what your problem is, and then we will solve that problem for you. We don't care that it's not actually a problem. We're going to present the problem to you, and then we're going to solve it, and then we're going to say that that's why, you should vote for us, or why we should be reelected, because we solved that problem that wasn't actually a problem for you, because we don't want to address the real underlying problem. You know what I'm saying? So it's the same thing they do in the black community. See, you all clearly look at the black on black violence numbers. Clearly, you all have a gun violence problem. No, we have a poverty problem that creates the gun violence problem. It's the guns aren't the issue. It's the poverty. You can go out there and, you look at You got areas in America where white people got all the guns in the world, right? All the areas outside of Chicago don't have the problem that's in Chicago. They don't have the concentrated poverty like Chicago has. That again, that prolonged exposure to poverty and the cultures that derive out of that prolonged exposure to poverty. Eliminate the poverty, you won't have that problem. But nah, that's too big of an issue. We don't want to solve. We don't want to solve that issue. No, no. So no, black people, I'll tell you what your problem is. What's our problem? Your problem is you don't have enough gay pride. Like for real, that's our problem. We don't have enough gay pride. Yes, you don't have enough LGBTism in your community. That's why you have all this going on. So what we need is gun control and gay pride. That's what we need, right? Sincerely, the Democratic Party. You know what I mean? Like that's literally what they do. And there's a lot of foolish black people that they fall for that. But anyway, I need to save that for my video about black politics in America as a whole nother conversation. You know. But just looking at it, I was saying to myself, I'm like, nah, America is definitely a problem if these sorts of apple pie freedom, my individual rights, because there's tons of clips, there's tons of people run around thinking that. You know what I mean? That's storming the Capitol, whether you want to agree with it or not, right? And Trump hyped them up and everything else like that. Like that was kind of America's little Tiananmen Square, right? China, like, go look up Tiananmen Square. China's like, no, no. You know what I mean? And then look at what they're doing to the Uyghurs and the Western provinces in what's that province called? I can't think of what it's called. It starts with X. You know, but I mean, you got to recognize when people want to be in control. Same thing, Russia, invading Crimea. They want to control all that oil. I mean, you got to recognize it. Now, to a degree, I kind of don't blame Russia because I'm like, yeah, they kind of backing up right against literally in your backyard. But then again, by the same token, um, what was I about to say? I'm going blank. But I say in your backyard, um, you can't really stop a nation, from if they want to join another alliance with other nations. This is why I'm saying it's going to come down to number one, is there going to be a resource war? That's one, definitely a resource war if we're not already in one. And then, it'll be, the Western alliance versus the Eastern alliance. I don't know if China is going to align itself with Russia. China's got a way bigger GDP than Russia does. Russia really does look weak in its inability to invade Crimea, effectively. Then again, it hasn't pulled out all of its guns. Um, going nuclear. I don't know. I don't know. I think Putin would be assassinated internally before they would allow that to happen because, the other people, would know that that would be, total annihilation, of Russia if that were to happen. And it would just cause way too many problems, way too much disruption. In other words, there would be very little to nothing that would be salvageable. China obviously has its issues and wants to go in and take over Taiwan and wants to go in there. And, that would, they want to do that, but at the same time, they don't want to mess up uh, their trade with the U.S. They also want to bring in electric cars because, China missed all Japan got to come into the U.S. and they brought their cars, their Lexus and Honda and all that stuff and Nissan and Mitsubishi, right? And China's like, yeah, China's got some slick ass electric cars. Like China ain't birds herding on its electric cars. And China's like, yeah, we were trying to bring that to the American market, but that can't happen with all you know, the stuff going on. China wants to, expand its empire, and the U.S. is like, nah, brah, you can't do that. But, again, U.S. being the largest trading partner, right? And then if there ever was any sort of conflict, and again, you're talking nukes again, you're talking, um, possibly even bringing in North Korea, because I don't think North Korea would just idly sit there and, North Korea would see it as an opportunity. So then you would have North Korea, Russia, and China versus the rest of the world. South America would probably want to stay out of it. Like, we have nothing to do with this. Nothing, nothing. You know what I mean? Or they would come really late. But it would just be a hot mess. It would be a hot mess. Economy would be all fucked up globally speaking. It would just be a hot mess. Hot mess. Even if it didn't go nuclear, it would still just be a hot mess. But, I mean, just looking at it, sticking back to my topic, yeah, I'm just saying, I don't think that, I think America is just a problem. And I think that's why there's this constant international attack on the American, this Second Amendment. As it pertains to mass shootings, again, fortify the schools. That's what I say. I'm like, the America is awash with guns, no doubt about it. And the way that the media goes and makes these guys infamous and famous, it all, I can't even talk. It only encourages, you know, more young men to go off and try to do that, especially in a society where we have all these other problems, this attack on manhood, this attack on masculinity, the whole gender war thing, this newfound social media where everybody thinks that everybody that they deal with or date or interact with is supposed to be a millionaire, especially when it comes to the women. So it's very easy in Western society for a young man to fall into the loser bin, right? Where back in, let's say, 1950, you graduate high school, you either join the military, go off to war, or join, you join one of the big three or something like that, and produce something or manufacture something, and then you can buy a home and you can start a family. Right, that is gone. Like, young people can't afford families. I was talking to Cap, I was telling him about a video that Undead Chronic did. And, Undead Chronic gets on my nerves sometimes because he's got his little microaggressions, towards, the black community, black women, black men. He always throws that up because he feels some type of way because he feels that white maleness is attacked, which, I can agree, to a certain extent. But I would argue that all masculinity is attacked. Again, I've said before, the black community is the canaries in the coal mine. White boys were perfectly fine when our shit was being attacked, right? And then again, due to prolonged exposure to poverty, we had all this alternative lifestyle stuff with, our street culture, right? Which is, our version of, rebelling against that. Plus the whole economic component, the poverty, making money, drugs, the narco economy, thanks to the CIA, and dumping drugs in the black community. It's a whole nother conversation. But I'm saying, you got white men, they feel some type of way about, you got black men, they're promoted all over the place with hypermasculinity, but then they're the face of criminality. And then white men, they're told, oh, they're all racist and that, they engage in white supremacy even when they feel that they don't, or even when they feel that it doesn't benefit them. And then even white women will jump on the bandwagon because they're all leftists and they're all woke. And so white men are not only racist, but they're misogynistic, and we need to do away with white males and all that other shit. And so, you got a lot of bitter ass white men right now that feeling some type of way, and that's why they gravitate towards, the irony is they'll gravitate towards these organizations that are the very things that they don't want to be labeled. They'll gravitate towards the Proud Boys, or they'll gravitate towards Patriot Front, right? And then they'll take like, in other words, it's like, well, if you're gonna label me a racist, I might as well be a racist, right? And so then they go and then they start saying things like, embracing that identity. America was not stolen, it was conquered, right? So they start embracing all that shit in the process of trying to reclaim their masculinity. And America has not done an effective job of, facilitating, healthy avenues, for men to participate in, a positive male identity. They think by telling men that they should be effeminate that's the way to go. And the irony is all the women that push for the equality and feminism and all that other shit. They're not even attracted to effeminate men. That's the irony. They'll tell you to be a certain way, then come to find out that that's not who they're fucking. That's not who they're attracted to. You know what I mean? That's not who's getting their balls licked. You know what I mean? Like that's the funny part, right? But yeah, so you got a lot of frustrated white males. So like just looking at it, I question white supremacy every day because and then when I get off of white supremacy, I'm like, nah, this is looking more and more like class supremacy, right? Because Undead Chronic, he was up there bitching about boomers, saying the same thing I said. I'm like, yeah. He's like, he was like, the boomers control like 90% of the wealth. They're fucking over their grandkids. I mean, he was going the fuck off. He was going off, and I was like, yep. I was like, that's pretty accurate. It's pretty accurate. You know what I mean? But again, the areas where we are divided, and everybody trying to get their piece of the pie. There's I don't think there's any. I mean, arguably, ideally, yeah, there are areas, where we have the same problems and therefore the same interest, and we should focus together and come together and form Voltron. But by the same token, I already know that's not going to happen. I know that people still hold they just those ingrained beliefs and bigoted ideas and whatnot. Like they're like again like in my opinion, white people are trying to maintain the little power that they have. They're not about to share it and then say, oh, well, it'll be better off if we you know form Voltron with the black folks. Nah, like and then black people are very mindful of it. Like it ain't gonna be oh, we get together and we formed Voltron, and then at the end of all this, the white folks were like, "Oh, and now get back to the back of the bus, nigger." Like, no, that ain't gonna go down like that either. Again, we don't benefit at all from this shit, so we're like, fuck it. We've already been over here starving. Us fasting a little bit longer. That shit doesn't phase us. Let this motherfucker burn down. Then maybe something else can come up out of its ashes. You know what I mean? So the white folks, they don't want to lose the little bit of power that they have, and then black folks, they're like, I'm not joining forces with them if at the end of the day it's still going to be more of the same. They're not going to use me and then I facilitate empowering their shit only for them to give me their ass to kiss at the end of the day. So we have that problem on the table. But overall, like if you want to talk about from a humanitarian standpoint and you want to say the people versus the muhaha, group, I'm like, yeah, damn right they don't want the citizenry to be armed and be able to challenge them, when they want to come through and say, it is the way I have spoken. All these other countries, that's how their model is. It is the way I have spoken. That's all there is to it. Like, and again, people think, they want to, live in this illusion that, oh, they don't have any power. They're just figureheads. I'm like, why is their name on the deed? Why is their name on it? Why do they still have a connection? Granted that I don't think they'd ever get real stupid with it to destabilize, economies and all. They can't do that because they'd have too many people that go against them. It's just like, I mean, even the Queen has a whole bunch of people she's got to answer to. That's why that whole Meghan Markle and fiasco and went over. There was a lot of people that disapproved of that. Remember, no ruler rules alone. The ruler has to satisfy their keys. And who are the keys? The keys are the wealth, the business people, the bankers, the nobles and stuff like that. Ask a person in the UK, what is the purpose of the House of Lords? Right? You have a parliament, you have elected officials. Why are the House of Lords there? Why do they have any say? You see? Again, it's the illusion of inclusion, right? Or the illusion of not illusion of inclusion, the illusion of freedom, the illusion of independence. Again, and maybe, I feel like black people have a stronger Geiger counter when it comes to, you know, being controlled, because since that's been our position for so long, but because like white people, like, they don't, for some reason, sometimes they just don't see it. Oh, they see it when there's like a minority or a black person, in the driver's seat. I'm not driving, but they get real comfortable when they think that it's another white person driving, especially one that they respect or think that they know more than them, or are intelligent or something like that. Like, they'll go to sleep not realizing, I'm like, yeah, that's that classist motherfucker that doesn't believe that you should ever be driving, even though he's the same race as you. They don't see that. It's just like how I said about black people when they want to pass gun control. If they create a law that prices black people out of the market, black people stupidly co-sign. I'm like, I thought we was all now all of a sudden, now they're saying they're going to raise the fees on firearms ID cards to $500, and you're co-signing that. That means your black ass ain't going to be getting a firearms ID card because that shit is too much money. And black people will sit there and co-sign. Yeah, that's right. Gun control, right? But if they ever came out with a law that says everybody else can have guns except for black people lose their shit. No niggas need apply. What? That's racist. And again, it's like black people focus more on the racism or what they perceive to be racism than the actual fucking outcome. There's a lot of things that go down that are racist that are not, overt foaming at the mouth Ku Klux Klan type racism. I remember when Tim Wines pointed this out about what they did after Hurricane Katrina, where they basically, a parish that was 98% white said you can only rent to a blood relative. Well, if the parish that is already or was 98% white before Hurricane Katrina, that meant that and they could only rent to a blood relative. Well, all the blood relative of that 98% population would all be white. That's the only people that they could rent to. You could only rent to somebody who was a blood relative. Yeah, they might as well put up a big fat sign that said, keep the niggas out. And black people, like, it's like Tim Wise pointed it out, but that's the type of stuff that black people don't catch sometimes. And I'm sitting there looking at y'all like how do y'all not see this? Black folks want to see everything else in the world. Well, brother, did you know that in ancient Egypt, and did you know that the pyramids have the perfect angle and the golden ratio? And I mean, they want to tell you all this stuff. And there's a secret library at the bottom of the Vatican. And did you know that? And that's why there's an obelisk in the middle of Vatican City, because the ancient Egyptians had knowledge. They tell you all this stuff, right? But then when, white supremacy does like some backdoor shit that ultimately is going to keep black people out, it's like black people just not paying attention. Well, he didn't call us niggas. Oh my God, he might as well have. I'm like, look at what is in place. Nah, goes right over their head. That shit kills me. But anyway, that's my stream of consciousness for today. Do I have anything else to say? I don't have anything else to say. That's my video. SWPO.